3, I'd like to welcome all of our guests here this evening. Thank you for being here. ¿Habrá necesidad para interpretación al español? Si no, thank you, Carmela, for being here. We also want to, before we move on to the approval of the agenda, I want to welcome Isabel Pruneta, who is our newest student rep. Welcome, and we look forward to a new school year with Caden and yourself making us aware of some of the student needs. So thank you for being here. Moving on to item B4, I will entertain a motion to approve this evening's agenda.
So moved.
Motion been made by Director Mike Garza. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Simmons. Discussion. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item C1. Is there any citizens request to speak? Okay. Moving on to item C2, and for this, I would like to ask the Board of Directors to please join me up front. So on behalf of the Board of Directors, we'd like to make a very special presentation this evening. And we want to take this moment to really thank Dr. Hurst, if you could join us as well, please. We want to take this time to recognize Gina Bullis for all her years of service to our district, to the Othello School District, and to all the students of this awesome district. And Gina, as you are all aware, wore many, many hats in this district, including the following departments: transportation, food services, community schools, maintenance, and finance. And additionally, Gina supported the school sites by mentoring principals on many occasions. And so it has been, for me as the president of the school board, and for the board, and for all of us here, Gina, an honor and a privilege to have her as a part of the OSD family. And so you will be missed. And so I'd like to present Gina with a plaque. So Gina, if you could come forward, please. And the plaque states this. The plaque says, presented to Gina Bullis in recognition of 14 years of dedicated service to the Othello School District, 2017. So Gina, congratulations.
Okay, so I don't have much of a voice, but so it really truly has been a journey, and one that I have grown tremendously from, and I believe with all my heart that I have impacted our community and our school district. I have great people around me, starting with my husband, and most of my staff's here, and the support of the board, and of course Chris, and great colleagues, Pete and Sandra. And so you're one of many that does that makes an impact on the school district, and I look at the last 15 years with a lot of pride. I'm very, very tired and very excited about my new journey, but I'm also really, really excited for the Othello School District. I firmly believe that a new set of eyes, a fresh, not so tired brain arriving here will be a really great thing for our district. And I look forward to being on the outside of the district and supporting the great work and being that voice out there that says, I think there's more to the story. There's a lot more really great things going on inside the walls of our district, and really encouraging people to seek to understand and really find out and to be involved, because we are growing, and there's just a tremendous amount of great things going on under Dr. Hurst's leadership, and such great people. So I really look forward to being that person out there that can maybe just shine a light on what's happening inside the walls in a really different way. So I appreciate, especially the people in the audience, because you are as good and as great as the people around you, and I've got great people. Even the little guy in the back. That's not Don. He's not a little guy. But I do really appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the belief. And I got 3 more days to finish as much as I can and be ready to hand the baton off to somebody else. So thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to item D1. I will entertain a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda.
Did you say C1?
D. I'm
D1.
sorry, D1. Thought I said that.
Okay, sorry.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion's been made by Director Simmons to approve consent agenda. Second?
Second.
Second by Director Ashton. Discussion.
Maybe just for the community, I know a couple board members are going to have to abstain from this vote.
And just so the community is aware, there's a couple of family members that are part of this consent agenda, so there's a couple board members that will abstain from this vote as well. So thank you for that update. No discussion. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And a couple abstentions. So motion carries 3-0. Okay, moving on to item D2, Superintendent Report. Dr. Hurst.
Yes, good evening, Board, and to everyone that's in our midst. There's a number of things that we want to share with you through the Superintendent Report. Number of items that has Gina Bullis's name next to them. I'll read them out and then turn it over to Gina. We have the explanation of the $1 million increase that was brought up at the last board meeting. Director of Professional Learning budget. Also, dollar amount for Crane Company. We wanted to get a status report on the sinkhole in front of transportation. We also wanted to get a status report on the containment wall to the tennis courts. Gina has a presentation on legislative impact. And then we also wanted an update on the land lease, and then I will come back with the bond query process. Thank you, Gina.
Okay, so in the budget presentation at the last board meeting, there's a question that brought up about Activity 21, which is considered supervision. And I believe I provided a copy of the definition from the accounting manual. So one of the things, I'm going to list off what the differential basically consists of. So one of the things in the 16-17 budget, that dollar amount was understated by about $200,000. And what happened was there were people in the teaching and learning department that were incorrectly in the budget, not during the year of expenditures, but in the budget they were categorized to activity 33, which is curriculum, instead of 21. So that was an oversight in the 16-17 budget. So that's the first couple hundred of that million. The majority of our central office transformation positions qualify to be their salary or their budget code structure in payroll has activity 21. So that increased activity 21. There were some offsetting in the whole central office transformation presentation last year. There's offsetting dollars in other categories for savings from cutbacks in consultant costs and those types of things. So basically those salaries and benefits was another 600 total that hit activity 21. So that's 800. The other differential has to do with MSOC money, so material supply operation costs, specifically in the vocational department. And the reason why it's earmarked in Activity 21 is because the expenditures, the revenues coming in for CTE, the expenditures have to go out in CTE, but Amy Paris is still in the process of developing the full entire budget for both the middle school and the high school as far as where those extra discretionary dollars will go. It's the first year we've had a middle school budget, so we've budgeted for the salaries and some basic expenditures, but as they develop that program this year, those dollars, rather than just throwing them into supplies or another category, we've put them into a discretionary at the administrative level, so the director level for the program, which is Activity 21, and then she will distribute those through to the individual budget, whether it's professional development or teaching, through working with Pete and finance on just kind of the vetting and the building of the budget through the year. So the monies are in there, and they're being held in the Activity 21. And really it came from hiring so many directors late in the year and budget development, and some budget development with CTE was done in June with teachers. But there's also so many pieces of CTE that are still being learned, and so those dollars are in Activity 21 that will be distributed to other activities as deemed appropriate through their use of the budget. I don't know if that addresses.
Any
provides
questions
it.
from the board about the $1 million increase?
Just wanted to clarify, I didn't know what it was at first, but I know what it is now, but just for the community members, it was an increase of expected revenue in last year's budget cycle, right?
I'm sorry.
This was you're talking about an increase in expected revenue from the last budget, right? Is what this is?
This actually has to do with, so when we went through the budget in the workshop last week, as well as in the open meeting, we went through every single activity, which is a part of the budget code, and there was a differential in between 16-17 and 17-18 in the actual expenditure side of the budget, and so I'm just explaining.
Yeah, I just was wanting that clarification.
Yeah.
Because as a community member, I wasn't at that meeting, so it's hard to tell exactly what this is referencing just by that terminology. So I just want to get that clarification for the public and for me.
Okay. That answer the question?
Yep.
Okay.
We're good.
So then, do you want me to just go through these? The
Yes,
next
please.
item, so the Director of Professional Learning is part of Supervision 21. So he's not, that salary is not in PD. When we look at the definition for PD, he's in the supervision. So he's included in that budgeted differential. The Crane Company. So Orland, over the course of June and July, when he was asking or seeking bids, he contacted 3 different companies, and the only one that provided a quote or a bid was the Advantage Moving and Rigging. So it's just in an email. It's not a formal. This is because of the dollar amount. You can do a competitive bid, which consists of making a phone call and saying what we need and taking those over the phone. So based on what I understood the board did, all I have is the written documentation from an email. So moving forward, if there's going to be an actual RFP or an RFQ, that would be a whole 2 to 4 week process. I just need clarification so I know what to have Brian do in September to bring back to the board formalized responses.
Is this because the board was wondering if we even want to do it at that cost, or?
Yeah, I think that at the last meeting or the meeting before, we talked about we have plenty of time to decide, and the results of the bond are going to be a big driving factor for me personally. So I think we talked about just waiting on that, but if we could have that email maybe uploaded into Board Docs somewhere, so if we ever want to reference it, so it's have a really, because we can't ever search the contents of these things, it seems like, so just a really good heading of what the name of the PDF would be. That way when we search for it, we can find it.
Okay.
That's what I would request.
I'll include a copy of the email with the quote and the email with information on the other companies that he contacted.
Thank you.
Okay, so an update on the sinkhole. As of right now, I know that Architects West has looked at the sinkhole, and I know they're working on some information. I know that Stewart has looked, and there's a meeting Thursday at 1 o'clock at the Transportation Center with Orland, Stewart, and representatives from Architects West. So I believe there will be much more of a formal update, probably by the next board meeting, of some recommendations of work and possibly even timeline and costs.
What does Architects West provide in that? What's the purpose of having them there? I'm looking at Stuart because I figured he knows.
Just because they're the lead architect on it. They've actually already looked at it and given Orland some of their thoughts, and this is,
So do they think it's an architectural issue?
no, it's a civil issue.
Okay.
But since they were the lead on it, they also want to take the lead on this. I can't remember who the civil engineer was on it, but we'll probably go back to the plans that they've designed and we're going to try to figure out what the scope of the project might be, but we need when we do that, then we'll need some feedback from the civil.
So are we paying Architects West to come and do this analysis separately from the
No.
Transportation Center? Or it's included in some scope from when we put it in?
So there's not been any, they've been in the district quite a bit with the tennis courts, so they just went out and looked at it. I think if there's any civil engineering work done, there's potentially some cost there, but at this point, there's been no additional costs and no discussion of just trying to help resolve and what are the best next steps.
And we're outside of the warranty already, right? There's no,
I believe so.
okay.
So I have a question about the name of the company will probably come to me, but someone else might remember it, that dug the holes and told us that we were
Geotech firm?
the geotech firm that dug the holes and told us that we're good there. And then actually we paid them to mitigate when we found out there was water. And now I'm assuming that poor mitigation is why we have a sinkhole, or no?
There was no mitigation in that area.
So there was no recommendation to do something to mitigate the issue there?
No.
That would be because they thought that area was fine then, right?
Correct.
We have, making a statement, maybe I shouldn't make the statement, but as we go forward, we have some potential more construction projects. Is that the only show in town, or?
No.
So
There's other firms
I
available.
think it's important that we as a board keep in mind what the history's been. And, I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened with another firm, but I think it would be a little bit foolish of us to not at least have that discussion when the time comes and we're looking for a geotech company.
I totally agree.
Point well taken. Go ahead, Gina.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure what status of the report on the containment wall. If you've driven by, it's coming right along. Just for clarification, this change order proposal, the wall was $11,500. The additional $8,000 is for the all of the rock or whatever fill they're putting on the slope. So it's the combined change order of just over just under $20,000. The wall was $11,500, and then the rock fill that they're putting on the slope is the additional $8,000.
So the two landscape bricks, that's the length of the wall? That's
That's the height of the wall.
the height of the wall? Why do we call it a wall?
I can't imagine that's $11,000.
So I have a general question on that. Could we have gotten that request from the city and worked out a deal where we did we put out maybe a separate request to do that, or did it have to be within the scope of these tennis courts as a change order? Because in hindsight, we've already proved it, but in hindsight, maybe that would have
The
been
local maintenance guy probably could have figured that out.
some kind of landscape company might have put. I don't know. Gina, do you know if we had that option, or do we have to? include it in
I
the
do know
scope?
that this was tied to getting our building permit. So I really can't answer that.
Okay. I thought it was just it was going to be a lot more of a wall than what.
That's why
Yeah.
I told you guys to drive by it. Just a question, I heard that they were gonna replace the fence also in a that's gonna be a separate change order, is that correct?
I'm gonna have to find, I haven't heard anything about the
Okay.
fence.
Does anyone know, I see we built a wall on the other side of a parking lot that's been existing for years. What additional runoff does anyone know what the city thought was gonna run off of that parking lot that hasn't in the past because of these tennis courts?
What parking lot?
Well, the other side of the parking lot by across from the softball fields,
Softball
that
fields, yeah.
wraps all the way up Juniper to the end of that parking lot.
All the way up to the old bus
So
garage.
if that's to stop runoff, there's gonna be, to me, there's less runoff because that's not sloped anymore, where the tennis court's gonna be.
It's not necessarily to stop a runoff, but they're trying to collect any rocks or something that might be coming out onto the sidewalk. They wanna let the water run, they're gonna let the water run out there, but they don't want the soil and rock to come out onto the sidewalk.
Have we had a big problem with that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Apparently we have. All right.
They're not very
Sorry.
loud tonight, I don't know why.
Gina, the question about the tennis courts in general. I know in the past when we've had construction projects, we've seen like a timeline. I don't know, did we get a timeline for this one? Or I don't remember seeing one. It helps me for my perceptions of when I drive by, which I don't drive by all the time, but every time I do, no machinery's being moved around at all. And so it helps when I have a schedule, I can see, oh, well, we're on the right timeline, but do we have a timeline on this one, or is it just start and finish?
I believe it's start and finish, but yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so, the legislative impact, I'm actually gonna stand up for this, so besides the PowerPoint, if you could open those two documents as well, please. Yep. Perfect, thank you. So, you can go ahead and go back to the PDF. There we go. So I spent quite a bit of time trying to make a complex topic with several missing pieces simple, and it just doesn't happen. So there's, you guys know as well as I do that a lot happened at this legislative session, pretty historic. There are a lot of new resources coming in, so what you're going to see on the majority of this presentation is the additional resources for the Othello School District. However, the expenditure side is going to be evolving over the next several months for the 18-19 year and then beyond. So the two documents that the timeline, if you can just click on one of the timelines. This one I started building based on what I knew it was happening and pulled all of the description details coming straight out of the latest TWIO, which was 114 pages. And then halfway through the TWIO, I found the other timeline. So if you can click on that one. So this one is built by OSPI. It's right in the middle of the TWIO. If you haven't opened the last one from WASA, it's pretty descriptive. So this just goes down. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it gives you the timeline of from 2017 to 2023 of the different pieces of the legislature that the biennium that just passed. Now, not wanting to be negative, but the biennium is only 2 years, 2017-18 and 18-19. So anything that's on this document that potentially would happen beyond 2019 is subject to change, because in the next biennium there could be some things that come up. So if you can go back to the PowerPoint, please. So those documents just really lay out the one that's a blue table, which is mine. It gave details on fiscal impact for this year and what the programs look like. So I'm going to go ahead and just have you go down. It's important. I'm going to spend a little time on the fiscal tool that gives an oversight of the dollars coming into the district. That was designed by OSPI, made available for schools. And then school districts, you basically go in and open your school district and select your year. And there's some disclaimers just because of what's not included in there. So it's not intended to be all-inclusive, but it is to let you know how much more, what the dollar impact you're going to receive for basic ed and levy LEA in exchange, and the impact with the changes coming up with the levy cliff, as well as the change in the state property tax. So the OSPI is also going to be working over the next several months to create the matching tools for expenditures. So for example, the salary schedule as we know it, which is a bunch of lanes, 0 experience through 15, 0 credits, bachelor's 0 credit in lane 1 all the way over to master's or PhD plus 15. After this school year, that's gone. A brand new salary schedule will be designed. OSPI is scheduled to develop a beta schedule, if you will, by December 1st, made available to school districts, and then school districts will make the decision to either use that as their baseline or develop their own. And the criteria is laid out. Actually, Leah, if you could go to, if you know which one's mine, the blue one. Yeah. So go ahead and go down to 1819, please. Keep going. Whoa. Oh, right there. So right in here. So right here. So the salary schedule, there's parameters of a low end and high end. Actually, the low end's not showing in there, but the low end's 40 and the high end's 90. And there's some additional factors in there too. If you're teaching STEM courses or bilingual, you can go above 90. So basically, the state's saying, here's the parameters, the low end, the high end, and you build your salary schedule. But they're also going to provide a tool. So, you know, we're swimming right now in a big sea of ambiguity and thinking of a big puzzle piece. Every couple weeks or couple months, we're going to get more and more of the pieces of the puzzle to put together. Because right now, we have a pretty good idea of what the revenue will be, but we don't know what the expenditures will be. So, and this guide is set up to really just talk about as many of the programs that came through and the fiscal impact for Othello. In 1718, there's very little. There's a 2.3% COLA, money in, money out. It's any of the monies that came in 2017-18 for programs, whether special ed, bilingual, high cap, their flow through. So that just means they're coming in and they go right back out. So if you can go back to the PowerPoint, please. So this is OSPI's disclaimer right on the tool they gave. So that's just on there for the board to know what's included. So the next several slides, they're very identical, if you can show the year. So this one's for 18-19, and this is the column we want to be looking at. These were basically what was going to happen for each one of those different budget proposals. So each year has 2 slides. One of them is the overall, this is how much money you're going to get over your current maintenance, and then it's broke down by students. So if this was touchscreen, I'd bring it a little bit more, please. So you can see right here that the additional dollars for the 18-19 school year are projected at $5.3 million, more than the maintenance level, meaning if nothing changed over 17-18. This does not have some of the federal program dollars, so like Title I and all those. So if you can go up just a little bit, so that would be $1,360 more per student. So this same philosophy is up here for 18-19 and 19-20. So this dollar amount right here, 9.6, that's not in addition to 18-19. It's always looking back to 17-18. So just, again, for clarification, this isn't 5.3 million in 18-19 and then another 9.6. So it's always looking back to in 1920, 2019, 2020, Othello School District is going to receive right around 9.6 million more than the maintenance level for 17-18. And again, this does not include categorical funds like federal special ed, bilingual, and those types of programs. It's actually bilingual is up there, but the state special ed, but not the grants like Title I, Title II, migrant, those. So if we can go down one more, this is the last year that their projection. So this would equal a $2,270 more per student. And then the 2021 projection is, again, this is 10 million above the maintenance level of 7.9. Now, if you go back and look at the maintenance level in each one of these years comparison, it's different, but it's because each year they're grabbing what would your enrollment be. Okay, so this number here for 2018-19 and 2019-20 is different because they're looking at what would it be with your enrollment as of 2021, your maintenance level for 17-18 compared to the enacted budget. So it's really important that you look at those because it's it can appear that those numbers are not correct. But I'm going to restate, this tool was designed by OSPI to give districts a tool to start working on projections. So that would be $2,268 more per student than what we currently have. So breaking it down a little bit farther, I think it was important for us to look at, this is just a summary. So these were the dollar amounts, the bottom right-hand corner for each year. Again, basically over what's currently in for 17-18 from the equivalent funds, the estimated dollars per student, and the expected increases that we don't know yet are going to be in these areas. So we don't know what the salaries and benefits are going to be until we have a new salary model to look at. We don't know what our operational costs are going to be until we have that trend data to continue looking at. So again, OSPI is committed to working with ESDs and school districts to create those tools. And back in one of the timelines, the one from the state, it lays out, that's OSPI was charged with the responsibility to have a workforce group to put together a salary model that districts can use.
Gina, just backing up to that one, it might be a silly question. The estimated funding increase from 1920 to 2021 is increased by 500,000, but the estimated increase per student drops. Is that because there's an expected increase in FTE of students?
I'd actually have, that's a great question. I'd actually have to go back and look at their formulas because pulling these directly out was, the tools there, and you grab your year, you grab your school district and you grab your year, and all of the calculations are being pulled in behind the scenes from
So they're
OSPI.
making some estimations on what our student enrollment's going to be, I'm assuming.
Yes. And so then this is a little bit deeper dive to look at the actual impact on levy and LEA. So our 17-18 levy, which I believe you are aware of this, but I'm just going to restate it. We're collecting 2 years, so we're collecting the second half of the 2017 calendar year and the first half of the 2018, which is the first year of our new levy. So we'll be collecting the full amount of both pieces. So the last half of 2017's approved levy and the first half of 2018. But in 2018-19, we get to collect the rest of our 2018, but the 2019 is limited because of the new state. We're going to be limited to that $1.50 per thousand assessed value, where our 2019 calendar year collection that we just got approved by voters would have been $2.48. So there's a 98 cents differential that we're not going to be collecting. So this just shows you our variance of between years. So basically between 2017-18 and 2020-21, our these two funding sources have decreased 22%. That doesn't mean our overall revenue's gone down because we've seen where the state's doing the wraparound. But this, I think, just gives a little bit of information of that impact of the levy cliff and the change in the. So when the state does the $1.50 per thousand of assessed value or $2,500 per student, it's the lesser of those two, and so we don't qualify for the $2,500 per student. That'd be like $11 million. That would rock, but we don't get that. Go ahead. Thanks. So this is just my little ending piece, is that really this is a work in progress, and this will be one of the things that I'm doing for the incoming Executive Director of Business and Services. Is I've built multiple tools for this this individual, and wrapping his arms around the legislative impact and really getting connected with the ESD and people at OSPI, and to learn that and really get some traction is going to be one of the major things that I work with him on. So if there's any questions, a lot of really great reading here.
Exciting times.
Yeah.
And I think the last one, Gina, was just the update on the land lease.
Okay, so the land lease with Terrigold Farms is through September 1. I don't have anything right now on my radar for taking it back out for future renting. If I think we'd need some direction from the board, what you want to do with that, so that I can add that to a list for, you know, what you call
I
it, the
definitely
post
think it
assessor.
needs to go out. I've been contacted by people that are interested that I'm not sure who to direct them to at this point. That was one thing, a clarification I needed, is who should I have people contact if they contact me with interest?
That would be myself and the
Okay.
new executive director. Hopefully that person will be here on September the 5th also.
Okay. Just my only feeling would be the people that are contacting me would be wanting to rent it like October 1st at the latest to put in the crops that they want to put in. And when you're doing onions and potatoes and those kind of things, they need to do work this fall to get the ground ready.
So I guess
So if we wait till November, those
Yeah.
people that are going to pay us good rent are going to be gone.
They can contact me right away.
will that land still have a circle?
The people that have contacted me have the means to be able to take care of that issue.
Okay.
Awesome. So there's one more item under superintendent report, and that's the bond query process. And what I thought I would do is just start off by sharing the results, some of the data. So we can open that up and just share with the board. So when you look at the data, there wasn't a lot of responses to the survey. There was 183. But if we remember, we posed some questions on the survey. And you can see on the first question, you can see that roughly 72% shared that they would have one February 2018 bond to address the K through 8 or K5, 6, 8, and then this 9, 12 overcrowding. So 72% there, and then you can see for the two separate bonds, it was right around 28%. When you look at the other diagram for the other question, you can see it was split just right down the middle, where it said kind of half and half, include the auditorium and athletic complex in the preferred bond package above, and then kind of half also run a separate bond for the auditorium and athletic complex, regardless of the preference above. And when you look at the comments, you can see there was 35 responses. What I did is I went through them and I categorized them in 5 different areas. One was right around the K through 8, and you can see that there was some questions about the K through 8 model, and there was 6 if you look at them. Somewhere or another, there were 6 responses that was not in favor of the K through 8. When you look at another theme was overcrowding, and there was 6 also that just addressed that overcrowding was an issue. And then another theme was the auditorium. And I divided this actually up into 2 categories. There was some for the auditorium and some that was asking the question, why a 1,500 seat auditorium? So out of the responses, I kind of 4 in favor for the auditorium, 3 had questions about why even a 1,500 seat auditorium. And then there were some other areas also, some random comments, but then there was one also that was talking about no more property taxes. There was another one that was talking about the need for an early learning center, and are we going to consider a preschool also. So those are the data points. But what was really interesting, we had a meeting with Lori Oberheide, and she did a very masterful job, in my opinion, of meeting with some community members and mostly staff at this meeting. And really, her message was, how do we address these issues? You know, people are thinking about these concerns that I shared with you. What are people thinking? What are people saying? And what are we going to do about it? How are we going to message and how are we going to brand? And that was really her expertise. She's from ESD 112. And what she did was she put us together and we addressed questions that she had, and she had another person that is actually scribing or scripting all of our responses. So what she did is she put together a document. But what I thought I would do is share a clip, but I only want to share 1 minute of the clip of what kind of the end result will be from pulling us all together in this bond query process and how we're going to move forward in messaging. And really, if you think about it, her key skill is really to look at what everybody's thinking, what everybody's saying, whether it's negative or positive, and come up with a message or a branding solution to address those questions and concerns. So if you could pull up that website, this is what she did for another district, and we'll watch about 1 minute.
For almost 60 years strong, our high school building has been a staple in the Chatfield community, and we want to keep it that way. But the building is starting to show its age. If you're a homeowner, you know that needed changes such as kitchen or bathroom updates or finishing a basement for a home office are big ticket items, and people will often need a loan from the bank to get them done. Schools are no different, except they have to go to taxpayers to levy the money. And that's why the school district has put a question on the November ballot for maintenance and improvements at the high school to update many things that have served the community well since the late 1950s.
This bond referendum is all about the kids. We have a great opportunity here to raise the level of education, to compete for the students that are thinking about going to other schools in neighboring districts.
We value the community voice greatly, and we listen intently. We believe the plan currently is a very good reflection of those desires.
That's right. Residents asked for an affordable project, and the district scaled it back, focusing strictly on upgrading academic spaces for 21st century learning and maintaining the building itself.
So we're going to stop it here. I only wanted to show about a minute, but if you can go to the very top of that web page, I wanted to just point out to the board also and to community. What I like about her product is that she also builds this web page, and she has a referendum home, so words for the superintendent. She has solutions where you can put fast facts about our bond, the details of the bond, so community can come on and they can look on our website and see what's going on. Election information, frequently asked questions. So this will be one of the products that she would actually do for us that we're actually in the process of doing. But what I found interesting is she starts first by getting these people together, and she's asking these tough questions. So when you look at the notes, this was from the meeting. So these were the tough questions that she was asking. And it was interesting, it was somewhat uncomfortable to hear how some of the committee members felt, but also how the staff members felt about where we are in the district and how everyone's feeling about the vision also. But no matter how uncomfortable it was good for me to hear this, but also for us to document everything that's out there from this committee, because we have to address it in our messaging and in our branding. So when you look at it, you can see some of the challenges that came up, and I won't go through everything, but I will highlight some of the things that really stood out for me in this branding process. Like the question came up from Lori, whom we need to reach with our messages. So you can see there was a number of stakeholders who we said, these are the people we need to reach out and message to The ones that stood out for me out of that group was farmers, and we shared, they were a tight-knit group. There was senior citizens, and many of our senior citizens are retired teachers, so we really need to outreach to them. And then there was also the question about undecided voters, people who are just not voting, or people who have not even registered to vote, and how do we reach out to them? And then also there was some who said those voters who are unreached, there's a population within our community that we just have not tapped into, that community members felt. And how do we reach out to them and really share with them about this process? So again, what I like about this is she's taking all this data and she's putting together a branding solution and messaging for us to really attack. A couple of other things that I want to just point out that was really powerful for me is where it says focus on OSD staff. So she just flat out asked the question, how is the staff feeling in OSD? So you can see some of the responses that it's 50-50. And this is perception from some of our staff members that 50 people are comfortable with the change and 50% are a little uncomfortable about the changes.
Did that data just come from a gut feel, or
Yes,
did
sir.
that come from an actual,
That was just
actual
from
data?
gut feel.
Just a gut feel.
Gut feel. And then, thanks for pointing that out. And then also there was another piece that really stood out to me where it says concerns OSD staff have about the bond proposal. Well, some of the concerns are certainly documented in those responses from the survey, but also those who were in our midst, again, they needed clarity around K through 8. And even when they saw the diagram that it's not actually a K through 8, it's a K-5, and then it's actually a middle school in this common space. So then we started this conversation about messaging. So how do we message that it's not a true K through 8, that it's divided. It's actually 2 schools, but that shares a common space. So it's going to be really important that we message correctly when we get our branding solution. So there's some other ideas that we talked about or we discussed about how to message that. It was important to bring in the historical perspective also about what Othello is, what Othello means to people, and bringing that into our branding solution. Another one I wanted to point out to you was there was a question about what do we want people to think about or know about and believe. So when we look at the images that Lori's going to put together, or the website solution or the branding solution, we want people to see that OSD, Othello School District, equips students to have a better life. We want that imagery to be out there. Othello kids and community deserve the best. That this is for the students, that this bond is for the students. But there is no hidden agendas here. It is all about the students. And we also said that we wanted them to see that overcrowding is a problem here. And then on the flip side, there was a question, what do we not want people to think about? When we look at all these images, our website, the branding solution. So we don't want them to think about K through 8 at all. We want them to think about these are 2 facilities that's going to meet the needs of our students. And that OSD is focused on wants. Not focused on wants. That we're focused on needs, that this need is essential, that we are truly overcrowded at every level. The other piece, another question, which even made this more, especially important for me, is that the McCleary decision calls for class size reduction in K through 3, which means we're going to be even more overcrowded. So what does that mean for us? So this is absolutely a need. And then what do we want them to visualize? And I thought this one was interesting. One of our members that was there actually mentioned that they visualize Old Mother Hubbard, like the shoe. So we asked them to clarify, well, what does that really mean? So the person who shared that said, well, think about Old Mother Hubbard and, kids busting out the shoe, out the seam. So it gives you this visual imagery of really we're overcrowded and we need help. It is a need. It's not just a want. So when you think about what she's putting together for us, I've certainly been impressed with the one meeting that we've had, and she put together a communication plan, and we have been following this communication plan to the letter. So when you just go through it, what I'll do is just do some highlights. When you look at the month of August, you can see we are right where we are supposed to be. We have the notes from the branding query meeting that we had last week. We're presenting those notes to the board, sharing the communication plan. This communication plan is going to be shared with a team of people. So if you remember the M&O and levy process, it was myself and Gina and some board members that was going out on a road show. Well, with this process, we need to extend what that communication team is going to be. Can't just be 2 or a couple of people. It's going to have to be a big effort. But when you go through also, you can see in the red, basically there's certain things that she's going to be doing throughout. So certainly using our social media process, certainly using our website, posting videos, getting myself, the superintendent, getting teachers, getting students, getting board members to be part of the video also, again, is part of addressing all of those messages that are out there in our community, good, bad, and ugly, and putting together an appropriate message. We imagine also doing staff meetings, community meetings. I mean, you name it, we're going to do it, and Lori's going to be involved in that process. And we also have media releases that we're going to be doing also. So it's going to be a big communication effort, a big communication campaign. And if you can go through, you can see there's something very specific that's happening every month. The good thing that was very good to hear from Lori is when she said that she's working with, I think she said 5 other districts, and she said she came here and we are way ahead of everyone else, because she says some people are doing bonds for November and they're not as far along as we are. So it was really good for me to hear that we are certainly on track and way ahead of the game. But make no mistake about it, it's a lot of work that we have to do to get this, get the word out about what we're trying to do for our students. So I wanted to share that piece with the board, with the community. We're excited about it. And that concludes my report.
Any questions for Dr. Hurst? Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So when you're talking about like reaching out to everybody, and I see from like a professional standpoint that that would like help the overcrowding, like everything. But have you talked to any of the kids? Because the kids are like, the kids are who we're here for and everything. And if you go up to a kindergartner and put them in the middle school, it's gonna be very uncomfortable. And I feel like reaching out to the kids is one thing that you really need to do. Because especially from all the people that you do want to reach out, they're going to listen to their kids. They're going to listen to what they're comfortable with and what they see is happening, because kids are honest. They're not going to lie to their parents about something that happened at school. So I think that's something that you should really look at, is looking at a student's perspective of, I'm a kindergartner and I'm going to school with an 8th grader right now, and just see how that transition is.
Thank you for that feedback, and that's certainly part of our communication strategy and communication plan. And we know and we believe that our kids are certainly a big part of making this a success. And we're doing it for our kids. It is for our kids, so thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, moving on to item D3, director discussion. And Director Simmons, is there any updates on legislative?
You know, I had put together a presentation much like Gina's, but hers was a little bit better when it came to the financial part, so I don't have anything to add. I'm joking about that, Chris. No,
Okay.
I have nothing to add. There's no specific things legislatively that I want to talk about. The financial piece, I would have never been able to do what she just did with that.
Okay. So I know today was the first day of school, so our student representatives are here. I don't know if you guys would like to share anything about your first day, or is there anything else you'd like to report?
First day went well, as first days goes. Usually they're crazy, and this year they were actually very organized and very planned out. There was a little confusion with the Chromebooks because we don't have books yet. We don't know what to do, and so there was a little confusion there still, but otherwise it went pretty smooth, better than years past.
Caden, can you share really quick? I was able to catch the last part of the freshman orientation, and I know that this year was the first year that they provided a whole half of a day or several hours, and I got a lot of positive feedback. Could you tell us, because I know you were part of that, how that was?
So in years past, the freshmen would come the week before school, and we would just have barbecue, play games, and show them around the school. This year, the administration had the idea that we should do half a day, and they're going to go to 3 periods, so it's like a school day. They started all off in the main gym with a motivational speaker, and that kind of brought them up and got them out of their shell. And then they split up into groups, and one of them was OHS 101, where they learned about the rules, the policies, and different activities that we do, so they can get a little in depth. And it was taught by kids, so it was taught by our ASB, so it's something that they can relate to. Another one was games that we play at our spirit assemblies, so they can get pumped up. And then the other one was a tour around the campus. So splitting it up, it definitely made the range of students, you could connect to them more on a one-to-one basis. And I think it helped them understand a lot of things. And I think hearing the rules and the policies come from the students made them relate to it more and made them understand it rather than just being told from a teacher. So it went very well.
Awesome. Thank you. Isabel, you have anything?
First, she has to introduce herself.
Yeah. Introduce yourself. Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
You know,
well,
there's 1,300,000 people on Facebook right now looking at you.
Don't even joke.
No pressure. There's
Well.
14 last time I looked.
I'm Isabella Perneda. I'm student representative for Desert Oasis. And our first day was a little bit rocky because we don't have a counselor yet. I don't know if we're going to, and hopefully. But there's definitely a lot of changes, and I think they're all going to be really good changes. I think it's just the kids getting on board with all those changes. So hopefully, you know, where I stand, I can kind of help them understand the changes and that stuff. And so, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Isabel.
Do the student reps not have Chromebooks for the board meeting?
They will.
Great. You have to earn that. Got to get one meeting under your belt first each year.
Okay, moving on. I wanted to have a discussion with the board regarding our school visits. I know that we've talked about this before, and before I know, I think it's GP 8.1 that talks about the schedule of the visits. I know that as a board, we had talked about switching the schools that we visit this year and visiting different schools at the beginning of this year rather than the same ones
It
that we
was
did
already
last year.
changed. It's in 8.1 different than last
And
year.
they've already been changed?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure with the board that was the issue, because, and the other thing I wanted to have a discussion about is the format of these visits. So I know that in years past, we've gone to speak with parents, with educators and teachers, and then visited classrooms. And so does the board want to change the format this year as to our school visits and what we want to do?
My personal feeling, and I don't know how the board feels about it, is that for this year we should be. I like meeting with all the people that we've met with. I feel like that we could be more intentional as a board to be more us bringing a message to those that we visit instead of us just showing up and having people just tell us how it's going. So for me with the bond coming up, I think it would be great if we had a presentation for, I know Scootney's coming up first, but if we had a presentation of why we're going to bond and that kind of stuff for that group, and focus it on something intentional rather than we're just going to show up at 7:30 and whatever happens. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but.
Yeah, I think you had brought that up before, Tony. I think that's a good idea to have a little bit more of an agenda on what we talk about. I think linkage is so important. We need to make sure that we're always taking our linkage opportunities there. but part of linkage is also us sharing information, and so, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I'd like to see the parent piece continue.
So,
For me, for the same thing, except for I think with that piece we should be more intentional too. We should come with something to share, and even if it's 5 minutes, and then we can open it up to have them discuss whatever concerns they have. I think it'd be more beneficial for everyone's time if we had something to share of what's going on from our perspective in the school district, and that'll facilitate conversation too, I think.
so does the board still want to meet with parents, kids, and teachers? And then have classroom visits? I remember having a discussion where some of you thought the classroom visits were probably not giving us really any information that we needed other than watching great teaching. So is that something that we still want to continue to do?
I would say yes, because that's the only time I get to see the teaching.
Okay. Okay.
What's the
I
rest of
don't
the board
mind doing
think?
it. I think it just needs, I think we need to shorten the time frame in the classrooms.
Okay.
I'm up for any ideas, but we definitely need to fill the time with some intentional things. And so I think that in order to change it, we need to come with some specific things that we need to change. And I don't know if it's soon enough to do. It's not like we have to, if we do it differently for Scootney, we gotta do it that way for everyone
Okay.
this year. I think we can
Okay.
maybe come up at a future meeting with some ideas of what we have of how we can change it. But maybe our first meeting's soon enough where we just keep the same format, but then look for a message to deliver to people. I like that idea.
Great.
I don't know what you guys think.
That first one's next Tuesday.
Yes, sir. So what I'll do is I'll meet with Dr. Hurst and put together a 5 to 8 minute bond presentation for the board to share, and then send it out to every one of you prior to that meeting so that everyone is aware of what that presentation is and who will be speaking and what parts they get. And so I will be working on that this week. Anything else to add to those visits? Okay. If not, we're moving on to item E1, assurance of organizational performance. And we will begin with EL8 budget planning and go over our survey monkeys.
Sorry, back up a little bit.
Okay.
Reminder, time, is it usually 7:45 or 7:30 that we get there?
It shows 7:30 on the calendar we just approved. I just looked at it.
Well, we're
a
going to have to
second ago.
change those dates for every school because they start at a different time now. So we'll change those times, and so
Yeah, that's right.
we will.
Not doing different.
Do they start, I believe the high school's later
Right.
than last year.
Mhm.
Is the elementary the same time?
They're about
All 4
15 minutes
elementaries are
apart.
about 10 minutes, 5 minutes apart. Are they elementaries? 5 minutes apart.
Are there any earlier than last year? And it was 8:05 last year. 8:15, 8:10.
So it goes Hiawatha, then Luticaga, then Scootney, then Wahidas, I believe.
So you
So
might have
Scootney
to
will
change
be
it
at
10
10.
minutes or
Right.
something.
Scootney would be perfect. Leave that one alone.
Right. So we will make sure to add the times for all the school visits as well. And student reps, you are more than welcome to come and join us on those visits as well.
And that is a public meeting, so anybody in the community, not only parents, anybody in the community is welcome to come.
Right. Okay, anything else before we move on? Okay, moving on to EL8 budget planning. Look over the surveys. Question number 1 is unanimously in compliance. There is a comment. Thank you for assuring our budget priorities are based on the board ends policies. It's a comment that I believe we should keep. Question 2,
Sure.
also in compliance. comment reads, "The budget was easy to understand. I appreciate the extra time and attention taken to assure the community and the board are well informed." So we will keep that unless somebody would like to remove it. Question 3 is in compliance as well. There were no comments. Moving on until everything was in compliance.
Question 9.
So, okay, question 9. 4 in compliance and 1 in compliance with the following exceptions. There was no.
That was a mistake.
Okay.
I couldn't figure out how to go back.
Oh, okay.
Bad fingers.
So we'll move it back to unanimously in compliance. And any other questions on GP8?
ELA.
I'm sorry, EL8. My bad. Moving on to item E2, GP8, agenda planning. So, believe question number 3. 4 found in compliance, 1 not in compliance. The comment reads, "Not sure this is happening." Question reads, "The board will meet at least once a month to conduct a business meeting with work sessions scheduled as needed." And
What's not happening?
It is
I must have
happening.
missed something.
We're here.
Yeah, I think that might have been a mistake on my part, but I don't remember.
The ... is thrown,
That's, yeah. I think the confusion was business meeting, and these are business meetings.
gotcha.
Question 5, I believe. There was 3 in compliance, 1 in compliance with the following exception, and 1 not in compliance. Comment number 1 reads, "I believe the gifts over $1,000 was changed in the district office policy, but not in this policy." And then comment number 2, item A directly contradicts a district policy and has not been happening. Which policy takes precedence?
The second one was my question, and I'm just curious what the board thinks. If there's a district operating policy that says one thing and a board policy that says another, and it's not a law, which one takes precedence? The board's policy or the district operating policy?
Board's policy.
Then we're out of compliance there because we're not getting those.
So what's the difference in number?
25,000 and 1,000, a big difference. The policy needs to be changed. I just was pointing out that it's really on the board. We're holding ourselves in compliance or not in compliance. This has nothing to do with the superintendent. But I would say we're out of compliance in this area because we haven't been requesting that information, and that's what our policy says.
Is that, the board feel the same?
That's correct. That's correct.
So, how would we know if we received a gift over $1,000?
We wouldn't know. I'm not sure that this policy should even be written the way it is, but it's written how it's written today.
I mean, it says that those will be placed in consent agenda, but we are there to approve consent agenda. We don't necessarily determine what's in consent agenda every meeting.
I agree with you, except for this is not an EL, and so you can't hold the superintendent or anyone else accountable for the board's policy.
I can choose to not hold us accountable.
Then we should.
Which is why I marked with the following exceptions.
Then we should have wrote the policy different.
I felt like we were in compliance on this entire policy other than the gifts over $1,000, and that's why I chose in compliance with the following exception. Yeah, but I totally understand your point and agree with it.
Has that policy been updated now? Okay, good.
Case.
That the district operating policy wasn't correct in board docs, but it is now, I believe.
So can I hear from the rest of the board members? Are we out of compliance?
I kind of like Rob's. We're not in compliance with the following exception, because that's the only part that we're not in compliance with.
Okay. Okay, so
It's only a $24,000 difference. No big deal.
I think you're focused on the wrong part
Hey.
of this.
That's just one concrete little.
I'm
wall.
with, I'm fine with that.
okay. So we'll just make that correction to in compliance with the following exception. Keep comment number 1. Do we still want to keep comment number 2?
I like comment number 1.
It's fine.
Okay.
I got my answer from the majority of the board. The board
Okay.
policies take precedence over the
So we will
district
keep
operating
comment number
policies.
1 and find this question in compliance with the following exception. Moving on to E3, GP 14. Dealing with a request or complaint. And we're going down to question.
They're all in compliance.
Oh, they're all, okay.
Yep.
They are all in compliance unanimously. Okay. Moving on then to item F1, policy review. We have EL9, budget execution. Is there any recommended changes from the board?
Yeah, I'd recommend that we change the wording where it says accordingly the superintendent may not
Okay.
to accordingly the superintendent shall not cause or allow.
That's to keep it with the rest of the policies that we've changed, correct?
You're gonna have to write more than that though, Tony. Cause then
Right,
you have to change it to a
because-
failure to and.
Yeah, change all that stuff too.
Oh, you're delegating.
Get on that.
Good work.
Thank you, Director Simmons, for making those corrections and bringing it to the
Glad
next
you caught
board
that.
meeting.
So,
A failure too, right?
yeah, I'm just trying to think of a, policy that Talia can refer to when she's rewording that you have changed that way, but there are some of them that have been changed to
There's several that say shall not cause or allow.
and then you can see the wording below it to fit into that initial sentence.
It changes the reason why I personally like it that way is it changes the policy a little bit because in this one especially, the superintendent's not doing the budget. His staff is, and so by not causing or allowing just adds a little bit extra emphasis on if his staff makes a mistake, it's the same as if Chris makes a mistake.
So, will you bring the written
Talia's
changes,
gonna
Talia? Okay, and then if you could include it in policy review again with the side-by-side. And then,
Is there something else?
No, I was just gonna say, I moved ahead a little bit to EL10, that's got the new wording in it, EL10 does.
Oh, yep.
okay, and then moving on to F2 EL10. Any recommended changes?
I wanna back up a little bit.
Okay. EL9?
We have talked about when we make changes, just approving them at that point, but not even seeing a final draft. I don't think I feel comfortable with that.
Right, that's why I requested it be on.
You did, I missed that part. I was
Yeah.
looking ahead
You
to EL10.
requested
Thank
that they
you.
come back into policy
Yeah.
review, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good call, President.
Appreciate it. Moving on. EL10, any recommended changes?
I have a question.
Mhm.
We changed the format a little bit, and it came up in another document, and maybe Chris can help us. What's the difference between last revised and last reviewed? I'm confused
Or
at
last
that.
modified? This one has last modified.
EL10 says last revised and last reviewed, right?
Yes.
And then there's last modified at the very bottom, which I don't know. I assume that has to do with some kind of Google
I think I'll have
Forms
to
thing, but
research that a little bit and come back.
That's a Google
Yeah.
Docs automatic.
the bottom one. But I don't understand the difference between last reviewed and last revised. I mean, should last reviewed, I guess my question is, should last reviewed change every year, saying that we reviewed it in review?
That's how I interpret
That's
that.
how I
Okay.
interpret
If that's how it's supposed to be, then I guess it makes sense. I just want to make sure that we're updating that.
So would the idea be that some of them could have be reviewed but never revised?
Right.
Since
Right.
they're adopted?
Right.
I don't mind that. If that's what that's the understanding of it, then I like the fact that we can see that, okay, one might have never been revised.
Stuart,
4
Mike,
years.
you guys okay with that? Okay.
We just need to make sure that that's consistent, so that
Right.
Talia knows to, because like we're reviewing it tonight, so that date should change then, under my understanding.
Yeah.
Well,
No, because we reviewed it tonight.
how do we
in
know when we
policy
last
review.
revised it?
Because it's still there.
The date's still down there.
So you're gonna add another line item?
No,
so
there's
you-
two on here. They're
There's
both
two.
on here
There's-
right now.
Yeah.
There's 2 dates on here. That's what was confusing me. There's actually 3 dates.
Okay,
When it was originally adopted, when it was last
I jumped
revised.
to EL 11 again, I apologize.
Sorry.
I'm looking at 11. So 11 never, doesn't have a last reviewed,
So
that's
that-
where I got the
Yeah,
confusion.
and we
Okay.
need to update them so they're all
So
consistent.
there will be 3,
So more consistency.
adopted,
Yeah.
reviewed, and revised.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
Unless it's
and in
never
my
been
mind,
revised.
that adopted date
Doesn't
is
need to be
not
there.
correct. If that's what it is, that should have been January of 2013 or 14.
14,
Is
I
when
believe.
that date should be, if that's when it was originally adopted.
Yeah.
To me, we just need to keep that clean so that people understand what it is, or take it out.
That's when it was last revised,
Yeah,
and those all should be those two should be the same date.
yeah. The reviewed and revised should be the same, but the
Yeah.
adopted should be different.
I agree.
Got that?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to item F3, EL 11.
They were, just
They
for Talia, they were all adopted the same day in January. So if you
And it was
find one that hasn't
2014,
changed
yeah.
yet, it was January of 2014, with the exception of a few new ones that we wrote.
But they would be typically the last one, like if it's a GP 20 or something like that, or EL 20.
Mhm.
So, EL 11, asset protection, any recommended changes?
Just the formatting.
Right.
After
And
we've
we've got that already.
January 13th, 2014 is when they were all done. I see that now in EL 11.
Okay, moving on to item F4, GP 6.1, linkage committee. Is everyone fine with,
This is a new policy.
it is a new policy? Everyone
Th-
had
This will need to be formatted like the other ones as well.
it, right? And this one would be adopted today, so that would be the adoption date.
So I get confused on these point ones, and the board can help me. Because this is a committee that has a beginning and an end date, and the end date stated in this.
Mm-hmm.
And, so is it a policy or is it a subsection of a policy? The 6.1? I get the same thing with the annual calendar. I guess I just get confused over, because once this policy goes away, it's gone in November. It's no longer there anymore. And so you put the reviewed, revised, and all that stuff in there, but once it's gone, it's gone.
If you look at all of our policies that have a decimal, they are all supporting documents. They're not true policies, so I would say it's a supporting document of policy 6, GP 6.
Yeah. So I guess I'm okay with approving it, but I'm not sure if the formatting and all that stuff is
True.
that important.
Okay, so I'll need a motion to approve this new policy.
Well, let's talk about this.
Okay? Well,
You guys have some questions on it, right? Tony did a great job writing it, but
I didn't write
besides
it. That's why nobody has any questions.
that, the members, for instance,
Do we have all the
I
owners?
just threw out 6 to 10 because there was some, that was part of the discussion last time, was at least, someone said that most 10, and so do you think that when you read the purpose, that is very clear about what we're asking this committee to do, and is that clear? Is that what the board wanted this committee for? To me, that's the most important part.
Yeah. That, I guess I'd be interested in hearing your definition of who a taxpayer is.
That would be a person who pays taxes in our district.
Directly. But I mean, for our district, but they pay property taxes to the school district. But if I'm a renter, I'm not technically paying property tax. The guy that owns the building that I'm paying the rent to is paying property tax. So is that person excluded from this, or is that person included in this?
What about the ones that live
Yeah.
out of county and still come to school here?
Well, the kids are a customer. They're not an owner. If they're going to, if they,
Yeah, if you sent your children here and didn't
Yeah,
pay taxes or live in the district boundaries, I would say you're a customer.
but I would say that the owner would include that amount in the rent, so that what they're paying for rent. is
Well,
going-
I don't
think it
disagree
probably
with
could
that.
be-
I'm just saying that
It could be written differently then. So do you have any ideas
But
about?
I just want to make sure it's clear.
Yeah, that was probably just like a general comment so that people who are looking at this.
Because
committee
business
being on,
people
they
are
know what that
taxpayers
means.
too,
Mhm.
maybe. Some of them are anyway.
So you want
live here.
to change the word taxpayer?
I'm open for suggestions. I just don't want somebody to feel, when we're going to invite people to this committee, I wouldn't want somebody to just feel like, well, I don't think I'm a taxpayer, so I can't come.
Sales tax.
Doesn't go to the schools though, does it?
It broadens the definition.
What about
How
community
about
members?
community members who
Just-
live within the OSD boundaries?
Well, I think then you're not really distinguishing between owners and customers. I was trying to give an explanation of what ownership was because it's so unique to policy governance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, the purpose of this is not to exclude customers, because some customers are also owners. But the understanding that the ownership offers a unique
But
perspective.
I guess to me, all community members, everybody that lives in Othello is in some form or fashion an owner.
Isn't our purpose for this, though, we feel like we're able to reach the customers in some linkage that we do, like meeting with parents at schools, that kind of stuff, but this is where we struggle, is trying to find a good way to link with the non-customer owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
That definitely have a perspective that's more about the big picture and not about what's gonna be best for my child in school.
So write that in there. That sounds like a good non-customer owners.
I've written already.
Oh, you're gonna quit?
Yeah, but that's hard, how do I put that?
I like that word, non-customer owners.
Well, then I have to explain what customers are in another explanation.
Was that the only question?
To me, I think it would be fine if it said owners would be defined as community members and business people living within the OSD boundaries.
What if you said, who are citizens and business people within the OSD boundaries who may not have a child or close family member going to school in the district? Would that clarify it more? But I don't want to necessarily leave those people out from the committee either, but
Because they're owners too.
yes.
You have to restate.
That's where
Because
that's
it
where I
says
struggle.
owners would be defined as, and those folks are owners. It's just easier for us to link with them.
Any other suggestions?
Because your
Anyone?
next,
I'm
I
just
thought
trying to
your
figure out
next
who
statement
doesn't
was really
pay
good.
I'm still stuck on the tax.
Student reps, can you help out here? At the concept of ownership, owners and customers? Apparently that makes 7 of us.
Yes, but only property taxes go to fund schools.
Was that changed under the McCleary decision?
So the idea of, in policy governance, the idea of ownership is that in any kind of company, there are people who are owners who have a stake in the cost of running the company, and then there's customers. So like in a retail business, the customers are people who buy the stuff, and the owners would be like the shareholders in the stock of the company. But in schools, it's a little bit different. The customers are the children, but also the parents of the children, because they want their children to get an education. Where the owners would be maybe I pay taxes, but I don't have any kids in the district. But I have a financial interest in this school district doing well. I live next door to it. I don't want to have rundown buildings. I don't want to have children who aren't being educated well. I'm a business person, so I want a good educated product to come out of the schools to come work for me someday. So that's the difference between ownership and customers. So what you two are tasked with is coming up with a wording for this committee. I don't
Okay, do we
have any answers for it.
do we want to keep this in policy review? Give us, or to give Director Simmons some time to think
Oh.
about?
It's just it's a 3-month policy, so for me, 2-month policy, sorry. For me, I think we should get going on this, because we need the linkage opportunities.
We gotta
for
be able
this
to
year.
figure out right now how to change that wording where everyone sounds like.
Okay.
Feels like it sounds good.
And
This is my idea, so someone
as
else
long
can-
as we make sure we're inviting community members, I just was pointing that out there for the future. So I'm okay with it how it is.
I
but
like the way it
we
is,
just want to make sure
actually.
that everybody's invited.
I think the discussion
participate.
has facilitated what we mean, so everybody is included.
Just did that give me a hard time, didn't you?
I had to find something. I know the next policy's coming, so.
Okay, any other recommended changes
We're good with
before we
6 to
vote?
10 members?
Mhm.
And then October 31st, 2 months?
I personally think 6 is too small, but if we only have 6, I'm not sure you're gonna get much value.
Well, I think we shoot for 10, and with attrition, you never know, I mean, it could go down to 6, and as long as it doesn't go below that.
I'd be more comfortable with 10 to 15, but I understand that if you get too big of a group, it lessens your impact as well. But to me, 6 members is,
10 would seem like a good,
I mean, if we're gonna shoot for 10, I think we should have 10 as our minimum, and if we get a few extra, that's a wonderful. And cap it at 15, but that's just my view.
The rest of the board think.
10 to 15.
Stuart?
I'm good either way.
Should change something on its
Okay.
policies.
We'll go 10 to 15.
Okay.
Sounds like consensus. Any other recommended changes?
Who,
Is
who's,
November 13th a good time for them to come report to us? I didn't look at the calendar before I did that. I looked at a calendar, not the board
November
calendar.
13th, the reason for that date?
It is the first board meeting after the October 31st, when that committee ends.
Yeah, that sounds
who's,
good to me.
who's gonna be charged in finding these said 10 to 15 people?
That's not part of the,
I know it's not, I'm
Policy.
asking the board, not you. You as a board
He is
member,
the
I am
board.
asking, not as the policy writer.
Thought we all come up with names and invites get sent out.
we talked about also finding a person who was a chair that would find the committee members. Those are two ideas.
My personal thought, to throw it out there while 2 of the 3 candidates are here, is to ask our 3 candidates that are running for school board to chair this committee together and go find the rest of the members.
It's a great idea.
Love that idea.
Here, here.
The 2 that are running against each other can bring boxing gloves. Maybe I'll come watch.
Huh. I wonder if they'd agree.
That'd be my thought.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Be great. We'll wait for you to make that invitation, Director Ashton, and then let us know.
I made it.
All right.
I'll text the other slothful one that didn't show up.
So the only change this policy is 10 to 15 members.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
I would like to approve this one tonight and get it going.
Right. So I'm asking for a motion to approve? GP 6.1, Board Linkage Committee.
So moved.
Motion been made by Director Ashton to approve this new policy. Second?
With the
With the recommended changes.
recommended changes.
Second.
Second by Director Simmons. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Moving on to item F5, GP8. So this is the policy that was changed by Director Ashton and
Recommended to be changed.
recommended to be changed. And there was several questions at the last board meeting. I'm not sure, you did hear some of those, Director Ashton, correct?
I did, and I sent a text to you to
Right.
clarify those answers. I don't see them in here. Do I need to look them up somewhere?
Yeah, where's the
The
side
list
by
of, the list, there's a side by side.
there's a
but
side
I
by
gave you a
side.
list of
Oh.
all the policies
Oh, the
that would
BO
change.
Yeah, the district office policies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're not included in here. So,
So if this revision is adopted, Vice President, are you saying that would eliminate these DOPs that are on the email that the
Yeah,
President
was that
sent
an
us?
email or a
It
text?
was an email.
Okay.
yeah, it was an email.
I guess to me it starts off with a philosophical question of how the board feels about having district operating policies that the superintendent takes care of that are really the board's responsibility, because they have to do with board meetings and board policies. And I understand that they also have to do that. Some of them have to do with state law, and we have another EL, find the number here, where the superintendent also is in charge by EL to make sure that we as a board are following the law. Because there was concern of what if something changes in the law and then we have to change our policy. But that's already covered. But I guess from my perspective, a lot of the 1,000 series have to do with this specific how we run our meetings. And to me, it'd be more clean and concise to have it all combined together. But that's just my opinion. That's why I wrote it that way. And when the policies I was alluding to that would be reduced are district operating policies. Instead of having 20 district operating policies, it'll all be consolidated into one.
And you caught everything in this, in GP 8.1, or GP 8. You caught all these DOPs in this revision?
According to me, yeah. Not every, I mean, everyone listed, yeah.
All the ones that you listed in the email?
Mm-hmm.
If the board remembers, it was a couple years ago, we asked for a review of the 1,000 policies to take out redundancies. And I think that's essentially what Tony's doing here. And if you look at some of the district operating policies, they aren't necessarily backed by RCW. Well, they reference RCW, but it's not like the RCW or WAC law says that the board has to do that. It just says this is where it's talked about in RCW or WAC. So I like the idea of eliminating a lot of those 1,000 series policies. Where I have concern about writing them into GPs is if they're just strictly there because of an RCW or WAC. I just want our policies to be easy for the public to read and not look at that and go, I am not reading that 6-page policy. That's where my concern is. And so I debated with Tony a little bit about this weekend, but I'd even be in favor of maybe taking the district operating policies in the 1,000 series that we have to have that are RCW and WAC based and putting them into one GP and then naming it whatever would make sense, like, Washington law that applies to school boards, right? That way, that can be the one that Chris keeps track of when there's legislative changes and lets us know, hey, you guys need to change this policy because of that. But for the most part, we don't have to spend a lot of our time as a board making sure we're paying attention, we have it memorized and those kind of things.
So what
That
if
would be
you,
mine.
so would you say maybe splitting it up into a GP 8.2? 8.1's the calendar.
You could, because you could then say in GP8 that the school board will follow all state laws regarding
Board meetings,
meeting attendance, meeting
agendas, everything.
everything, and then 8.1 would be the supporting, well, 8.2, because we already have an 8.1.
Right.
8.2 would be the supporting documentation to that, right? That could work. I like that idea.
I can't believe it.
So you're gonna write it?
Yeah.
Where would you?
Yeah, delegate to Juan. When was the last time this guy did anything?
All
Where
right.
would it change? Just under, just at the bottom where it starts with required approvals? Is that where you would change it and start that 8.2 there?
I don't know that I've looked at this one again, because we just started this conversation now.
Because
but,
that's really where the definitions start that I have in there.
You're saying everything below that is really in
Everything
RCW
required
and WAC.
approvals. It's not necessarily an RCW, but it's a definition of how we run our meetings.
Gotcha.
Because there's definitely things in there that are more detailed than the RCW,
Uh-huh.
the way it's written right now, if the board wants to change some of it.
Yeah, I like that. I think the agenda is very important. I think that's the basis of this policy, right? Is what our
Mhm.
agenda is. Yeah, that could work.
So other board members, how do you feel about GPA point 2?
So that would be a subset that somebody would go through and eliminate some of the 1,000s that aren't tied to an RCW or a WAC?
No,
they're
even if they're
redundant.
tied, you can still put them
Yeah.
in here. There's
Mm.
nothing that says
Oh.
that you can't, that you have to have it in a district operating policy, as long as we're referencing the law.
So it would be the 20 DOPs that Director Ashton listed that we can remove, that we will.
There's a lot of other ones that are redundant too. Those are just the ones that have to do with this policy, by the way. I mean, we did ask a couple years ago for the superintendent at the time to go through and remove them all, but it never got done.
So can we then just work on the revisions that Director Ashton made to GP8 and then come back with all the district operating policies that we could move into one policy and make it G.82?
It's already done. It's already done in here.
Oh, on yours revisions?
Uh-huh.
Oh. So you want to split it into 2?
Yes.
Okay.
And if you wanted to approve one and wait to approve the 8.2 till next time, that's fine.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I almost wonder if we should leave the consent agenda piece in there. Because that's something that comes up often in our discussions about our
I'm fine with
our
that too.
agenda. And then maybe everything below that be taken out and be incorporated into 8.2.
So everything below organization of board meetings?
So I move to approve GP8 as written through the first 2 pages, and then as organization of board meetings to be removed. Everything below that to be removed.
So a motion's been made by Director Simmons to approve GP8 all the way up to the end of the second page and remove everything under organization of board meetings for a separate GP at a later date. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Director Hilmes. Discussion.
What? Oh.
No discussion? Were you going to say something?
Yeah. Just request that we add a GP 8.2 to the next board meeting for discussion.
Under policy review?
Under policy review.
Okay,
It would be a new policy.
will do. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0.
It took less time than I thought it would.
Great.
It's only taken 2 months.
Okay, moving on to item G1. There will be necessity for executive session for approximately minutes for the purpose of discussing staff evaluation. So we will,
Will there be action taken, President Garza?
there will not be any action taken. We will adjourn for about 5 minutes and come back into executive session then.
Go straight to bed. It's a school day tomorrow.